What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Red Card Report. I'm Sebastian. Semi-final season is here, and European football is delivering in a big way. We've got Champions League drama, an all-English Europa League showdown, some historic moments across the continent. Transfer rumors are in full swing, especially that Enzo Fernandez rumor to Real Madrid and Manchester City, and the end of the season just continues to heat up. We're going to get into all of it today, so sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy. So, as I mentioned, we're going to jump straight into it, and we're going to start off with the highlight that was, the pinnacle of the match out of all of them that happened this past week, which was obviously PSG versus Bayern. Uh, I think everybody, including myself, came into that match not really knowing what to expect, nor how, any of the teams were really going to go into it. We both, all of us know that these two teams are respectively the top dogs in their own leagues. Bayern being the dominant force in the Bundesliga, and PSG being the dominant force in Ligue 1. That does ultimately lead us to believe that they will either, well, not either, they have to dominate in the Champions League, or they will ultimately just be said that the season is a failure. But going back to it, again, we had really no idea what to expect going into this game for any of these teams. Um, but it ended up being a better game than anybody really expected. And honestly, I feel like it was probably, if not the game of the season. Season's not over. We still have the World Cup, but yeah, it was a really good game. We see PSG come out in their regular 4-3-3. Bayern come out in their regular 4-2-3-1. And the match started off pretty hectically from the get-go. And it continued that way. Um, Aside from, the constant high tempo, there were a couple key matchups on the field. We saw Davies marking on Hakimi a lot. And I feel like Davies got the start for the first half specifically just for that. Aside from that, the other really, really exciting, matchup on the field was obviously Michael Olise versus Nuno Mensch. Olise being one of the best, if not the best right winger in the world right now, coming up against the one of the best fullbacks that we had last season, and I say we as all of us who watch football. And aside from those two matchups, the game started off high tempo. We see Lucho Diaz win a penalty for Bayern in the 17th minute. Kane buries it. Not short after a couple minutes, we see Kivichka Kvaratskhelia come in from the left wing from a very nice pass from Due to unbalanced Stanisic with a couple step overs and then put the ball in, excuse me, to beat Neuer. It was a really nice goal. And the game, sorry, the game only continued from there, honestly. After that, we saw the 33rd minute corner goal from Neves, which really just continued to open up the game even more. And honestly, that corner goal was interesting to me, uh, just for the simple fact that Neves being the one of the smallest players on the field, and he ends up scoring that. And then, aside from that, Musiala was the one that lost the mark there in the corner. If you go back and watch it, um, he was the one that was marking Neves. He happened to just kind of lax off as the corner was taken, and Neves got to it first, and we see the ball get put in. A little bit after that, we have that very, very nice Olise goal that he put in past Supanov, and honestly, I feel like that goal really highlighted the entirety of what like this match was. Uh, we really didn't see any play out from the back from any of the teams for any of these goals really, and instead of play out from the back from both of these teams, we really just saw high tempo pressing and both teams at many times just kind of launching the ball really, really, really far. Neuer and Bayern specifically, I think at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Neuer had 8 long balls by close to the time that the first half finished, and uh, it kind of proves and shows that neither of these teams was really trying to play with the ball in their own half. And we saw PSG doing a lot of the same. It would be some small play out from the back, like in between the center backs, and then it'd be back to Supanov, and then a launched ball up, and one of the midfielders would wing it. Sorry, would win it. And it would the play would start from there. Um, in my opinion, I feel like Zaire Emery also did had a really good game. Just really just carrying the ball and really just like laying off those simple passes that help you know transition the ball forward. I was looking at the stats on FootMob, and he actually had 26 of 29 accurate passes throughout the entire game, which I thought was pretty good, and it's a highlight to show that he was a critical part of that PSG midfield and transitioning the ball forward. Um, but aside from that, the game stayed pretty consistent after that Elise goal. We went toward near the half, with the only notable thing being that Davies handball. And in my opinion, after watching it back, I do see why the ref gave a handball simply because as Davies is, stepping up to defend the shot, he does open up his hand and his hand does leave the side of his body. And, at that point, your hand isn't in a natural position. So it makes sense for me as to why the ref gave a penalty for that. Um, and yeah, so after that, the ref gives the pen. We see Dembele convert, and really, we go into halftime not knowing what to expect. Uh, both teams come out looking out pretty much the same. I think Bayern made one change at halftime. I believe they subbed Davies up and put Limer in at left back. That kind of did change things going further into the second half. But other than that, the game really stayed the same. It just continued being that really high tempo, uh, just not playing in our own half, wanting to play in the other team's final third type of football. And it was a really good match. I I think we were spoiled, honestly. The fact that into the second half, not knowing if Bayern, not even saying if, you know, saying are Bayern going to be able to bring this back, or is this going to go into um is this going to go back to Munich this way? But no, we again come out seeing more from the same from Bayern. They were relentless, and we see PSG kind of let off a slight bit, um, which allowed Bayern to claw back very slightly. We see that Upamecano goal come in from the set piece, which in my opinion was nice. He got the slightest of touches on that ball, but he managed just to get it into the net. And then shortly after that, We see that, I mean, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Luis Diaz goal that comes from that nice Harry Kane pass. And honestly, the fact that Luis Diaz converts that off of, I think it was like 3 or 4 touches, just proves that you know this game was really just made and decided by all of the individual talent that was on the field. And it was insane. That goal, the way that he was able to bring it down with the outside of his foot and just set himself up perfectly to slide it past Supanov. It was a really nice goal. Um, and then we again continued seeing more of the same from Bayern, just that relentless uh, pressing and that relentless hunger to try to get a goal, and PSG with just more of the same. I think Bayern themselves were a little bit, shell shocked, uh, with how relentless PSG were. I think that going into the second leg in Munich, it's gonna be probably be more of the same, and we're gonna have company back on the touchline, so that game is gonna be even crazier. I probably expect another 4 goals from each team from that game, but I don't know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments. But yeah, it's gonna be a really, really, really good game. Going into the second half. Or, no, sorry, the second leg. But moving on from that Bayern PSG game, we then have the not so glamorous but very interesting Atletico Madrid versus Arsenal game. We saw this game being played in the Wanda Metropolitano in Madrid. And I think the first half was pretty much what everybody expected. Uh, both kind of teams really just feeling each other out. Arsenal dominating more of the possession most of the time for that first half. And what I found interesting, especially for myself, was the lack of involvement that the Arsenal players tried to use Martinelli with. Most of the attack that Arsenal had for that first half came primarily from the right. We would see Raya play out to the center backs, and then the center backs would play out to either Ben White. Hincapié would not really be involved too much in the build up from out the back. Uh, I noticed myself that when Arsenal were more comfortable in possession and were higher up the pitch, he was inverting more into that like midfield area and occupying that space like in the middle, especially in the first half. He was really giving Llorente a problem uh, on that side and making him tuck, really, really close near the center back and not allowing him to, do much. But again, I feel like Hincapie being tucked in, that close into the midfield kind of negated what Martinelli could do. He wasn't really used for that game. We saw most of the attacking threat come from Madueke. And in my opinion, Madueke had a solid game. We saw him do and take on a couple of dribbles against Ruggeri that were pretty successful in my opinion. One of them that led to that fizzing shot that he cut it in from right to left, and then went past the post. But it honestly was a good shot. I think he was having a pretty decent game for what Arsenal was trying to do and the rest of the Arsenal players, in my opinion. But again, in the first half from Arsenal, we just saw them really focused on that right hand side and not utilizing the rest of the field. Aside from that, we saw Declan Rice really dropping in as more of like a six And when Arsenal were in possession, we also saw them, well, not them, sorry, we also saw Declan Rice, uh, kind of, he was playing slow. It was just, it wasn't progressive. He would be, again, dropping in as a six, and he would be splitting the center back. So he would kind of be that middle center back in the line of two in between Saliba and Gabriel. And it just, it wasn't offering Arsenal much. Um, but aside from that, Atletico kind of were again feeling out the match. We saw them try to play out from the back, but it would just be more of the launched balls forward. They would be brought down surprisingly by Julian Alvarez. I mean, he is a very technical player, and he's one of the better players that Atletico Madrid do have. Um, Lookman wasn't really involved for Atletico Madrid in the first half. Simeone got a lot of the attention, and he tried to involve himself as much as he could off of that right hand side, before being subbed off, inevitably in the second half. But the one thing of note in the first half was that Victor Gyökeres penalty. In my opinion, honestly, at first looking at it, it was a really soft pen. Uh, but I can see why the ref gave it. He felt the hands on his back, and he went down. Yeah, inevitable at that point. And yeah, he converts it. It was a really nice taken pen. A lot of power put behind that ball, and he yeah converts. Um, After that, the second half, in my opinion, was a lot better than the first. Like I mentioned, we saw Simeone get subbed off, uh, and Atletico Madrid switched their shape entirely. They were playing a 4-4-2 in the beginning, and in the second half, they switched to a five back. So they sub Simeone off. They brought on Lenormand, and it was the five back consisted of Ruggeri, Hanko, Lenormand, Pubil, and then Llorente off as the right back, as a right wing back. Sorry. And then it was Cardoso, Koke. Um, I, it was like a front two with Julian Alvarez and Griezmann, and then you kind of had Lookman playing off of the left, like making the width off of the left. And it proved to be really effective for Atletico Madrid. It, it helped them a lot. Uh, Going into the uh the second half. So we see that penalty given in the second half, for the handball on Ben White, which came in from the corner, and Llorente's volley. And if that was not given as a penalty, honestly, it would have been shocking because it was similar, if not the same, to the incident that happened, in the Bayern PSG game. We see Ben White come over to try to block, and his hand was not in a natural position, inevitably, and of course, it was given as a penalty. Um, and we see Julian Alvarez convert a very, very nice pen, up in the left hand corner with Raya. I assume he was expecting the Panenka, but yeah, Alvarez just left him standing in the middle. It was a very nice taken pen. Um, and that goal really helped Atletico, bring themselves back into that game. They literally just got a second win. It was it was very nice to see. And like I mentioned, they did have a change of system going into the second half, playing that five back, with Lookman holding the width on the left and Llorente holding the width on the right. And inevitably, that was what led to Arsenal's really just stagnation in the second half. I think we saw maybe around 40, it was maybe 35, 40 minutes of just Arsenal, not doing much in the second half, just really trying to play off the counter. And we saw Atletico dominating most of the ball. What I found interesting, especially, for myself, was that with Lookman holding the width on the left and Llorente holding the width on the right, we would see Lookman kind of check in from these higher up positions deeper, kind of dragging the center back simply to be played these nice, amazing line breaking, like ground balls from the center backs most of the time. And then he would lay it off either in a one or two touch, and then he would be off. And one of the most threatening chances for Atletico Madrid came off that way, off the left. He, did that, brought the center back with him, laid off the pass, played it to Ruggeri. Ruggeri brings the ball up the left, plays the cross into Lookman, and the shot gets off, but it really didn't really lead to nothing. Raya had a pretty decent game, honestly. Um, but yeah, other than that, the second half of that game was pretty much, you know, Atletico Madrid controlling it. Uh, what I found interesting though were the substitutions that Arteta made. Especially when he changed the front three, it came in minute 68. So he subbed off Madueke, Gyökeres, and Martinelli. He put on Saka, Gabriel Jesus, and Trossard. And prior to that, he brought on Eze for Odegaard. I mean, I get the reason, the Eze for Odegaard change, but when I saw that he changed the front three, it just didn't make sense to me. And the reason being for that was just because, you're losing that kind of size that you need with Gyökeres. And, you know, Madueke was one of the few players who was, actually, you know, being decent in transition for Arsenal. Other than that, again, Martinelli was not utilized at all, which I feel like if he would have been unlocked more, maybe from either, Declan Rice playing a switch ball from that six to him, um, it would have definitely been threatening because honestly, especially in the first half, I know I'm going back to the first half, but um, if Declan Rice would have played one of those switch balls over to Martinelli, it would have been very difficult for Simeone to deal with it simply because it, the space that he would have had to cover. Because there were a lot of instances where it was Simeone having to decide whether he was going to cover Hincapié or where he was going to cover Marinelli, and the pass was never played. Again, it was just very unfortunate to see, uh, Marinelli unused and then subbed off inevitably in the 68 minute. Um, and yeah, the game ended 1-1. Uh, and, they take it back to the Emirates next week, where we hope Arsenal fans can unveil a pretty decent TIFO and they won't leave us with something, well, not us, but they won't leave Arsenal fans with something boring, like they did last year. But yeah, slight prediction for that game. Uh, I think Atletico Madrid can sneak it. I wanna say, I'll say, I'll say either 1-0 to Atletico Madrid or 2-1. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, but yeah, moving on from the Champions League, we had two Europa League games today, Thursday, that, I mean, in my opinion, they were interesting. I mean, I know not everybody else watches the Europa League, but they were very interesting to me. We have Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa being the first one, and the second one is Braga versus Freiburg. The first one we're going to talk about is the Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa one. So, honestly, the game was pretty good. It was pretty end to end. We saw Aston Villa in control most of the first half. They had a couple shots that were pretty good, making Ortega work pretty well. Ortega had a really good game, in my opinion. He had two saves in the first half, one coming from a Tielemans shot that was more near the middle of the field. Not sorry, more near the edge of the box, where it was taken and he had to react quickly. And the other one coming from a Morgan Rogers shot, which was it was a very dangerous shot. It looked like it was going to dip into the corner if Ortega didn't get to it, but he palmed it away, and it was a very, very nice save. Aside from that, we did see a very good save from Emi Martinez, like always, even though I personally do not like him as a player, but we will leave that to the side. That came from an Igor Jesus shot. So that came from a cross that was put in from Morgan Gibbs White from the left hand side. It was like a really low, quick cross that was put in, and he was able to get to the end of it. And Martinez, man, saved it off the line. Amazing save. Kept Aston Villa in that game, kept it 0-0 for the entire first half. It was pretty back and forth again. And then we go into the second half, the game continuing the same way. And we see that Lucas Digne handball, where he thought that the play inevitably was out and he just went to grab the ball. And yeah, it was given as a penalty. And we see Chris Wood step up. And again, a very nice, well taken penalty. Uh, but the craziest thing, when I was looking at that game, Emi Martinez almost got to it. It was fingertips that he didn't save that penalty. It was a very good penalty from Chris Wood, to slide it away and give Nottingham Forest the lead. They will go back to Aston Villa, not that far of a trip, and they will play the second leg. It's gonna be a good match. Um, you know, I tough for me to give a prediction on this, honestly, but I will say I'll say I think Nottingham can take it. I'll say another 1-0 win, but Aston Villa also can sneak the win. It'll be a good game, honestly. My predictions is kind of but it's gonna be a good game. And so moving on to the second match in the Europa League, in my opinion, which was my favorite match, we had Braga versus Freiburg. So in this game, it started off pretty intense. Both teams kind of going at each other back and forth. And then in the eighth minute, we see the first goal come in from Tiknas. It came in from a cross that came from the left hand side. Makengo didn't win the header. No, I'm sorry. Makengo won the header, but he inevitably wasn't able to deal with it. The ball was put back into the box, and Tiknas just got the slightest of touches on it, and he put it in the back of the net past Atubolu. After that, the game pretty much kind of stayed the same for a couple minutes. We then see Grifo put the equalizer in the back of the net, which came from a sloppy. It was a kind of like headered ball that the Braga player couldn't control, and we see Grifo get into the box in a good position, and from across from Beste, and he inevitably slots the equalizer away. after that, honestly, the game was pretty back and forth. It was a pretty physical match. Both of these teams kind of just going at each other, trying to, you know, get the winning goal, but no one really being able to break anybody down or kind of get a shot on that led to something else until we get to the end of the match. In I believe it was around like the 92nd minute, we see Atubolu unfortunately drop a save that came from a shot from outside of the box. It was a very nice shot, but uh, yeah, Atubolu spilled it, and Torgueles, who came on in the first half for I believe uh Horta. He came on for Horta because Horta got hurt, and he ended up scoring the winning goal for Braga. So now the game goes back to Germany. It's honestly really for any team to win, in my opinion. I'm gonna be a little biased here. I really hope Freiburg can pull this off, and I think Freiburg will probably be able to. Um, Prediction: I'll say Freiburg win 2-1. They do play in Germany next week, and I think they can sneak the win probably. But it'll be a really good game. It'll probably be better than Forest Villa, but honestly, both of these games are they're good. They in my opinion, if you like to watch football, they lived up to it. They were pretty honestly good matches. Uh, and then moving on to the last match that we're gonna talk about today, we had Shakhtar Donetsk and Crystal Palace. Now, the only reason I want to talk about this match, simply only reason, was because Crystal Palace scored the fastest goal in UEFA Conference League history. Yeah, they made history. But honestly, no, it was a really fast goal. It came from a header that was sent back in from a Crystal Palace player. Mateta brought it down, laid it off to Sar, and he put it in the back of the net. Honestly, to be fair, the rest of the game was pretty boring. Uh, Shakhtar had 71% possession for the entire game. Yes, I will say that again. 71% possession. 71% possession. And they were not able to come up with anything. Crystal Palace had 29%. And they still scored 2 more goals after the first goal that they scored. Um, so we do see an equalizer coming from Shakhtar Donetsk. It comes in the 47th minute off a corner. It was a set piece. It was a nice set piece. It was a corner, an in-swinger taken in from the left-hand side. And the ball was won in at the front post. It was knocked into the box, and Ocharenko put it away. It was a nice goal, but again, Shakhtar had 71% possession, and were not able to come up with anything else. After that, we see Crystal Palace just pretty much sit back. They were playing on the counter most of the time. We see Kamada put away the 2-1 goal, which comes off a long throw in from Chris Richards. And it was won by Lacroix at first, and then Kamada pretty much just dinked it into the back of the net. And then after that, we see again, Shakhtar Donetsk continue to try to get an equalizing goal, but they just were not able to break down Crystal Palace. Not able to get anything into the back of the net. And we see Palace score one more goal that comes from a Kamada and Strand Larson breakaway. And yeah, Crystal Palace wins 3-1. They go back to England next week with the hopes that they can make a European final. Congratulations to them. They're not having that great of a Premier League season, honestly. But kudos to them for being in the semifinals of the Conference League and making history today. So yeah, great for them, honestly. So moving on to that Enzo Fernandez rumor that is being swirled around to Real Madrid or to Man City. I think that the links that are there to Real Madrid are, they're not credible, but honestly, it makes sense from a position standpoint. Madrid are lacking in midfielders, and I feel like Enzo is one of those players that he can get the job done. He was initially brought to Chelsea to pretty much play that Caicedo role, but Caicedo ended up being better. And then he was kind of shifted over into that makeshift kind of 8 who would be that kind of late box crasher. And he played well, honestly. And he continues to kind of do well in that role. But I feel like in Madrid, or he would probably need a midfield partner just to kind of make up for what he lacks defensively. Because when it comes down to unlocking a defense, he is a player who can do that. He can thread a pass, and he can definitely find a way to generate some chances and generate some crosses into the box from either shifting the ball out wide or getting a ball in it threaded in through the middle. He's a player that can do that. I believe the fee that they're saying is around 75 million. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what they have left to pay off from the fee that they originally paid to Benfica, which was in the high hundreds. So that makes sense. The links to City, I don't see that being something that would happen, only because City are also being linked to Anderson from Nottingham Forest, and I think Elliot Anderson being a homegrown player and him costing a little bit more than Enzo Fernandez, he'll probably end up going to City. And again, that homegrown player status kind of does carry more weight in the Prem than anything else when you're trying to fill in those Champions League registration slots and stuff like that. So it makes sense. I kind of guess we'll just have to wait and see where this Fernandez rumor goes. But yeah. Other than that, I really appreciate you guys for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like, and don't forget to leave any comments, giving any suggestions or any bit of insight that you guys might have into any of the games that passed, or into any of the transfers that you guys may have seen. Yeah, thank you guys again for watching, and have a good one.